I've been watching you on Twitter. You've been doing Periscope. You've been rocking that Periscope out,
Yeah.
interviewing some big players in the internet realm, essentially, right? I mean, it's a pretty cool position you've got.
I'm having fun. I just do it as a hobby. I started doing it because I wanted to do an investor series, right? I'll turn down my music now. But
Okay.
I started doing it because I wanted to do an investor series because around March, I was buying up the market, right? Uh, the market was around 18,000. People who had never experienced bear markets before were screaming that that's the end. The same thing you've heard for 20 years. CNN will never say buy; they'll always say sell because they're trying to shake. They're trying to shake shareholders out. They're trying to shake the retail, cause a little bit of panic, buy cheap stock. So around March, I was increasing my position, which is publicly disclosed, in Boeing, right? And I
Okay.
said it was like 120, and I'm like, I've got to start doing an investor series because I don't care who's the president. I want to make money, right? And
Right.
whether it's Biden or Trump, I still have bills to pay, and
Sure.
we all have an obligation to the future, right? You can and this is what I advised everybody. I'm very active in venture capital. People only have so much of an emotional reserve, right? And
True.
it's very quickly depleted, and it's very difficult to replenish. So if I'm going to exhaust some part of that, am I going to do it with a little sign, or am I going to do it by trying to improve the life of my family? And that has a residual effect of I can give to philanthropies, and Nancy and I give a lot to philanthropies.
Wow. So what would you say to someone who has never is daunted by just the simple idea of investing? Just
You
some
have to invest. You have no choice.
But where
Every
do you
single
start?
penny you have.
Where do you even go? Where does one even
Okay.
begin to invest?
So the world is being cartelized. Let's look at what happened under under Obama, but it really became pronounced right under the Trump administration. When Trump became president, Amazon was around $400 to $600 a share,
Okay.
and Amazon and the other companies were able to use kind of Trump washing, right? They were able to launder themselves through Trump and essentially create very powerful cartels.
Hmm.
And we're seeing the emergence of these megacorps, right? So the world, you're young, you're what? You're 31, right? How old are you?
37 in a week.
You look good, man. You
Thank
look
you.
good. Yeah, I'm 54. I'm 54.
You
So
look good too. 54. Nice.
thanks. But you're the male model, right?
I was. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I guess yes, I did do that for quite some time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when I first came into Wall Street, it was a few weeks before the crash, right?
Okay.
And at that time, after the market crashed, everybody became very bearish, and there was just a lot of sentiment for several years. And I was very fortunate that I came into the market at that time. And so I've been bullish on America nonstop ever since.
I like that.
Nonstop. But when I came onto Wall Street, you were seeing what were called conglomerates, right? And that was these companies that were using junk debt to acquire wildly divergent businesses. So you would have essentially an IBM that was also acquiring a waste management company, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Was
And
that just them diversifying their assets or just like trying to gain power? What's the reason why they would want a waste management company?
well, there's a lot of reasons, some of which are that it allows them to see. Now I'm going to get into the complexities of Wall Street, right? But it
Yeah.
allows them to run several different finance books and not run them consolidated. So if you have bad earnings, you can kind of shuffle them a little bit. You're not going to consolidate them all into one. At the same time, you want to lever the company as much as you can at that point, depending upon the price you can acquire debt. So there's a lot of different reasons, but essentially what we were seeing very quickly was them spinning them off, right? They would acquire them, hold on to them for 2 years, spin them off. They would find new buyers for it. They would spin them off as IPOs, and there was just a lot of liquidity that was created.
Now, when you say spin them off, does that mean sell them off or?
Yeah, sell them off to essentially another conglomerate, right?
Okay.
And that exchange continued. So it was very high velocity. There was a lot of transactions in those companies There were the downstream companies that were being acquired by conglomerates, waste management companies, sanitation companies, all that type of stuff was really big. So, we were seeing the fragmentation of the world, right? And what you saw in the 90s and into the 2000s and 2010s is the fragmentation of the world. You were seeing companies create little niche markets. Look, my mentor created CNN. Okay. He created with Ted Turner. Two people created CNN. Ted Turner was the money. His first hire was Reese Schonfeld, who used to be Life Story. My mentor has left us. His body has left us. But what that really was fragmenting the TV market, right? They fragmented the TV market. There was only around 6 channels at that time. There was no dedicated news channel. They took a chunk of that. That's what they did, right? Then after he left CNN, about 5 years later, he created the Food Network. So now they were going from a niche market down into another niche market, and that trend continued, until a few years ago. And now with the cost of debt, cost of opportunity, there's just so many reasons why we're seeing a defragmentation of the world right now. And you have to buy the defragmenters, and you've got to buy the cartels. The world is being cartelized. So you have to buy the cartels. So when you say what's a good point to get into the market, people were telling me when I was holding Tesla for 10 years that it was a piece of crap. And I can name people's names. They were planting bogus stories in the business journals to try and bring the stock down. That's called shaking the tree. They were trying to get cheap stock to cover their short position. Yeah. And they were all wrong. They were all just making up stuff, and it gets a little bit boring and complex. But essentially, Tesla did pretty well, right? I was right. They were wrong. I've heard the same thing with so many different positions I've had, including Facebook. And the most important thing is you don't think about them daily. One of the mistakes that Bitcoin is creating, it's creating a lot of people that are going to be living on boxes soon, because they're living in boxes, not on boxes. They're going to be inside of them, right? Yeah. And you're seeing this kind of opportunity. You're seeing kind of momentum, and people are jumping on the momentum, which is fine because I bought it at 20,000 too, right?
Nice.
So you're seeing momentum, you're seeing a trend, right? And you're seeing the self-reinforcing loop, and hopefully it goes to 10 million or whatever it does. But that doesn't mean the person who bought it now is going to be holding it then. And that doesn't mean that the proceeds of that, they're going to invest wisely, because what you're seeing is people's behavior about investing changing. Yeah. It used to be you would buy something and hold it, stick it on your pillow, because it wasn't tripling and quadrupling in a day. Now, people's behavior has been Uberified, right? They need that hit. Everything in politics has been Uberified. They want an immediate response, and their investments show that. So I've owned Boeing, really heavily for like the last 6 months. And every time there's bad news, people on Twitter or people message me or text me, and they're like, look at this. They're wasting their time. The stock was just at 220. And while they're kind of observing it so they can say gotcha to me, I don't pay attention to it.
On the daily, right.
I don't pay attention to the bad news, because most of the bad news that they're hearing about has already been baked into the stock. So I would say if there's one place to start, one absolute best place to start is just as and I've watched a few of your shows, so I kind of get a profile of your listeners. They're very smart, right?
Yeah.
And I think a few days ago, you were actually talking about some books. A book that you had planned on reading, I forget what it was. But so
there's a few.
Yeah. So if I were to say what's a hobby, what they should be doing, one of my hobbies is going on to earnings conference calls. It's sick. It's like watching a movie. It's awesome.
Where do you get into that?
Oh, you can just go on, you can jump on Facebooks, you can jump on Googles. I mean, they're all available to you. And 2 years ago, Facebook was saying, look, we're going to cut 80% of our staff. We are aiming for 80% of our staff to be contractors, 1099s. And I'm telling everybody this. I'm like, listen, have you heard what Facebook is saying? And they were like, no, Facebook's coming to my college and they're recruiting, and I see these fairs. And now look what happened, right? So Facebook used they used COVID, right, as an opportunity to lessen their inventory of risk.
Yeah.
So how did I know that? I knew that not just because of some intuitive sense, because intuitive doesn't, you can't cash an intuitive check, right? I knew that because I'm listening to their earnings calls, and analysts will ask them these questions because analysts are saying, "How can you improve your earnings? What's going to happen next?" And um, one of the biggest drains on them is the cost of their human capital.
Hmm. Do you think there's anything that's going to be able to stop this cartelizing, like essentially these big tech companies taking over every industry? Essentially, I mean, they're
No,
creating their
no,
own monopolies. No, nothing's going to
nothing's
stop
going to
it.
stop it. I'm going to put the mic a little bit closer. Would that be better, or you can hear me good?
I can hear you fine. Yeah, it
Okay.
sounds good to me.
Okay, cool. I got a fan. I did one with Anthony Pompliano,
Hmm.
right? It was on his thing, and that day the market was down like 1,000 points. So I was on like a spare computer at my family office,
Okay.
and the sound was bad, and I'm listening to music to keep me calm, and it was just crazy. So I got all the equipment, but so I would just tell people, listen to some conference calls. That's
Yeah.
it. Do it as a hobby. Forget about the little bullshit companies. I like the lemonades, and I argue with a lot of venture capitalists because they want to talk to me about earnings. I don't give a shit about earnings. If
Yeah.
I know the world is being cartelized, I want to buy the cartels. And you may say, well, it doesn't make sense for them to buy this company. How I learned some lessons. About 2003, Jason Calacanis had a company called Weblogs, and I forget who his partner was, and I knew his Brian Alvey. Okay, Brian Alvey, who's a genius, and Jason Calacanis, who I suppose is a genius. He knows marketing style really well. He knows user interfaces really well. He was a big bull on Apple, right? And he's become a venture capitalist, right? So Jason Calacanis and Brian Alvey had this company called Weblogs, and it got bought out for $25 million. The company was, I'm going to tell you right now, no matter what they tell you, they love it. There was no company there, right? It was vapor. They're
Yeah.
going to disagree with me, but it was vapor. So,
Okay.
so I lived at that time right across the street from Michael's. Do you know that restaurant?
Of course. Oh, Michael's the restaurant. No,
Yeah.
I was
Where
thinking
do
the
you
art
live?
store.
Where do you live?
I'm in Maryland.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
East Coast.
Michael, my regular restaurant, because I'm a New Yorker. That's the way things work, right?
I knew
My,
that. I can hear it in your accent.
yeah, my regular restaurant is called Gattipardo, right?
Okay.
And the sister restaurant is Mozzarella Alvina. I've been going to Gattipardo. I've been going to Jean for 25 years. Okay,
Okay.
and it's where all the top, the top, the top of the top of the 1% will go to eat.
Okay.
And I just sneak in because I've known him for 25 years. I just get to sneak in, and he's
Nice.
awesome. And his sister restaurant is where Paul McCartney goes almost every day when he's in the city for lunch. I've seen him.
Cool.
I know. I just
That's
gawk
cool.
there. I just gawk. What are you going to say?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, um, um, I don't even know where I was. Right? I was lost.
Yeah. Why did you start talking about the restaurant?
Oh, okay. So we're talking about weblogs, right?
Yes. Yeah. Right. The vapor company.
So my mentor, Reece Schonfeld, was having lunch there because he had a regular table there with Dick Parsons, who had the big center table, right? Who used to be the head of it. And I at that time they had just bought Weblogs, and
Okay.
I asked somebody who was very in that circle of Tom Warner, AOL, why they do it, and I didn't understand it. And he said, "Well, we just wanted to buy it at any price. We were just going to buy it." So that night, or within that range, I think it was that night. I told my mentor what that person said. He was like, "Well, did you get an answer?" And I said, "No." He said, "We just bought it at any price." So what happened is they had a board meeting, and the board meeting said, "Listen, are we into space? Are we in advertising into blogs?" The answer was no, and they said, "Okay, well, buy something." The money wasn't even an expense. $25 million is their marketing budget, right?
Yeah.
So these days, if you learn from that, right, you take in that lesson, right, that they needed to satisfy their shareholders that they were doing something, right, that there was movement.
Yeah.
Uh, so they needed to satisfy their shareholders that there was movement and hopefully progress.
Okay.
And and the impact that would have on their earnings going forward, but most importantly that they were into space, that they were involved in space. If an analyst said on the call, "Are you in advertising at the blogs?" They would say, "Yes, we are." Money didn't make a difference to them.
That's
They
so
should have
messed up
sold it.
thinking about all the people that are actually out there struggling when a company's like, yeah, let's just move $25 million to show our shareholders that we're working on something.
Well, you're seeing
You know?
that now because you're seeing that. I did an investor series. Everyone should watch my investor series. It's not because I'm touting it. It's because I've been bullish on America for so long,
Yeah.
and I discussed this, and I have really good guests. And one of them was Ian Sigler, who's one of the top venture capitalists really in the world right now.
Okay.
And the night before, we were disagreeing, and he was like, "Well, I can't buy Lemonade or this stock or that stock because it makes no sense for the earnings." And I said, "It doesn't make a difference anymore. You have to take that weblogs experience and now multiply it times 1,000 because of the cost of capital and for a whole bunch of different reasons. Just multiply it by 1,000. It doesn't make a difference anymore. These companies have an inexhaustible supply of money now.